We can begin the discussion. So we have a very star-studded panel that I mentioned here. We have Dr. Neeta Verma from NIC. She is heading the NIC. And NIC, as you are aware, is playing a key role in creating the IT infra in the government sector. We have Mr. Sridhar Vembu from Johor Corporation. He's the founder and CEO and a very prominent head of a very large company, which is totally Indian. We also have Mr. Rahul Sharma from the Amazon Internet Services Private Limited. And we have Suresh Rathor, who is the founder and CEO of Controlless Data Centers. So let me begin by inviting our DG of the NIC first. As I mentioned, NIC is playing the most important role in creating the IT infra within the government sector. So, and also NIC has plans to really enhance the level of IT infrastructure in India in the coming time. So, I think her views will be very relevant in really giving suggestions as to how India can be made a global hub for data centers. So over to you, Neeta Verma.
Thank you, Dr. Rajender. Good afternoon to all my fellow panelists. As you know, NIC has been working with the government for over 4 decades, primarily provisioning ICT infrastructure and also building digital solutions. With our 800 offices pan-India, we have presence in every district. So essentially, we work with central government, state government.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, it's coming now. Yeah. Yes.
So, thank you. So essentially, we work with central government, state government, district administrations, as well as with panchayats. So coming from government sector, let me just share with you that how the demand for IT infrastructure is evolving as far as government is concerned. And also let me share some of the concerns which we face while going through this journey. As you know, Digital India program was launched in the year 2015 by Honorable Prime Minister. And this program has really propelled the pace of digitalization in the country, whether it is private sector, whether it is government. It has also created an ecosystem which has given this impetus. So today, if you look in government, one of the major use of technology is for the program management. Any program which has government have, whether it is the central government or state government, the programs are managed through technology. Technology becomes an initial piece. Right from the concept, gap analysis to formulation, we start using technology, going forward to its implementation, and finally monitoring and getting the feedback. The availability of cloud technology or cloud infrastructure, which NIC had set up in 2014, gave an advantage that we could really cut down the lead time to launch these programs, because these programs were digital native. So with the infrastructure available, sometimes within 3 to 4 weeks, we have made the whole program live in terms of citizens to apply for benefits and then transfer of benefits and so on and so forth. Another aspect which is also, and today if you look at it, in the last 5 years, any program you name of, which is Swachh Bharat, whether it is fertilizer subsidy, which connects to about 3 lakh fertilizer outlets in the country, or One Nation, One Ration Card, which connects to all fair price shops, going forward to e-way bill, which is for all the transporters, or e-invoice. All these systems are supported by very strong underneath digital solutions, whose success is largely depends on the infrastructure available. Simply and similarly, if you look at service delivery, in service delivery today, asking for any kind of an application has to go digital is a basic norm. Transfer of benefits, whether it is subsidies to direct accounts of the farmer, of the beneficiaries, or even delivering these documents and certificates through DigiLocker and all, these have kind of become basic norms. So technology is getting more and more deeply embedded into all these services which government offers. onset of COVID among its various other aspects, it also adversities. It also brought technology at the core, and which has really, I mean, which there are many estimates, but it is said that COVID has really increased the adoption of technology by various stakeholders from 5 to 10 years, and therefore we are now witnessing a new kind of demand. This demand is not coming from traditional central and state department, but lot of other attached associated offices in the government, which are in districts, some are in some district level, even in the panchayat levels. There is a lot of focus now to use these digital solutions and getting to this journey of digital transformation. So what I'm trying to say, there is suddenly we are seeing an exponential growth in terms of demand of IPT infrastructure. There is also a demand for having these systems to be really in a high available mode, so that you really need to put infrastructure of that order. Coupled with, which is already highlighted, things like, because in this process we are generating a lot of data, so data analytics, AI, going forward to IoT, then we have huge program of smart cities. All this is again further increasing the demand for infrastructure. And looking at this, what we are realizing, that this demand is becoming so big that it's really becoming difficult to directly meet this thing. There's a lot of huge unmet demand which is there. Therefore, to take this, we are looking for various models of industry partnerships. We've already empaneled managed service providers for our cloud, through which we can reach all those people who are whom we are not able to directly serve. We are also looking for industry partnerships in terms of leasing out data center infrastructure, so that we don't have to really start as a green project when we have to expand our cloud. As ministry, we have also empaneled cloud service providers, large number of cloud service providers, and in some of the large projects, we've started using those services also in hybrid mode. And similar kind of demand, I'm sure, is coming from private sectors, MSMEs, startups, in academic, these things. So essentially, we need far more DC infrastructure, far more cloud than what is possible today, or what is available today. Having said this, I have also felt that there are some concerns which we need to address when we move on to this journey. One, I feel still there is a huge shortage of skilled personnel as far as operations and management of data centers, cloud, software as a service, all that need to be done. And as we make it more sophisticated in terms of AI as a service, data analytics as a service, we really need a large pool of people. We have very beautiful edtech platforms in the country, but largely I have seen them focusing certification on AI, ML, deep learning, or sometimes cybersecurity is there. But I think there is a need to create a stream. Pardon me if I am not really aware, but I think there's a need to bring a focus in these skill platforms on data center operations and data center manager, cloud development, cloud-based development, or cloud management and operations. That kind of personnel are really needed. That's a huge problem which we face whenever we kind of bring people in. Going forward, as we bring more and more our citizens digital, particularly in our case, when we bring these programs, the crores of citizens whom we are bringing on board, and which belong to a very wide strata of economy. Therefore, it is very important for us to make sure that when we are dealing with them, their interaction with these systems are very safe and secure. So we have to build our systems, our infrastructure proactively secure, so that we build that kind of trust with our citizens that they are really more and more motivated to go digital. We have Data Protection Act, which is likely to be clear very soon, which will then embed a lot of mechanisms. So we have to be ready for all those provisions into our data centers, into our cloud solutions, to be able to provide. And this multiple layer of security, which is not only in compliance with the forthcoming regulations, but it is also focused toward the ultimate safety of our citizens, who should be able to trust this medium, and we take the whole digital, our whole digital profile to a new level. Another thing which I think we and government and industry has to work together is the procurement of these cloud services. This has to be slightly different than we do the other procurement. That whole model has to be really reviewed and kind of we need to come up with a new kind of a way through which we can really procure these cloud conveniently while benefiting from the inherent cost advantage which cloud technology gives me. And another concern, I feel that though through cloud we really get a lot of cost efficiency, but we need to perhaps increase our efficiency and bring these costs further down to be really make it affordable for any project or any IT initiative to be really using it with much more enthusiasm and proactiveness. Interoperability is another concern. There are some solutions, services available, but I think if we can really focus, we are moving from one to other cloud, truly becomes seamless. Somewhere, I think one day we have to reach there. So that's another point I think we need to really be discussing among ourselves. And I'm really happy so many esteemed panelists are there, and everybody will surely have some idea that how do we really address this issue. And I feel the kind of demand we have, and within the country itself, we have so much demand. And if we address this kind of concerns and the right kind of policy, which is the provisions for which is already enumerated by Dr. Rajendra, I'm very certain that as a country, we are poised to become the cloud hub for data center and cloud globally in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anita Verma. I think you have rightly mentioned the areas where we need to put more focus, especially ensuring that the cloud infra and the IT infra is secure. Also, the issues of lack of sufficient human resources is a major constraint now. So that's another area where we need to really focus on in the coming years. Also, the points you mentioned about ensuring that the cloud infra, the IT infra, is interoperable and also available to all the stakeholders across the entire spectrum. So those are very important points. Next, let me invite Sridhar Bembu from Johor Corporation, which is a major Indian company in cloud-based software, and they provide outstanding web-based and cloud-based business tools. So I would to kindly give his suggestions and how India can be made a global hub for data centers and cloud services. I would request all the panelists to kindly keep to the time limit of about 7 to 8 minutes so that we can have some time at the end for questions from the audience. So, Shri Bembu, over to you.
Namaskar. I keep thinking about this topic of how we can be a technology, world-class technology player, and data center is absolutely vital for both our technology security and our national security too. And to enable this, what I suggest, initial suggestions would be for data center kind of investment, and this is broad or any kind of technology investment that's vital for our nation. We can offer 100% capex write-off. That's a tool that's often used, or a very accelerated depreciation, maybe 100% write-off of the investment made, or maybe even 2 years, all of that, so that we can accelerate the investment in this. And we need to build tens of billions of dollars worth of data center capacity. And to accelerate it, if we offer this, more players will jump in, more data centers will get built. So this is one suggestion I have. And this is applicable to any kind of capital goods sector that we vitally need to attract. And these capital goods are what ultimately create, in our case in the cloud, consumer services, and the whole data layer is residing on this equipment. And we should look at our policies on how to accelerate the deployment by offering this type of policy, accelerated depreciation, including 100% write-off. Second, I would suggest is we should build these data center facilities, and this is also true in the US now, in smaller rural areas where land is cheaper power, we can go solar, all of that. For example, we have more than 8 megawatt of solar capacity in a very rural area in Tamil Nadu right now. And data center locations are ideally located right next to it, so that the solar capacity can immediately feed our thing. And fiber, given that our service providers are running fiber all over India for serving 4G and now increasingly 5G networks that when they come online, it is easy to get data center connectivity. By encouraging this, we also spread the associated jobs in construction, maintenance, data center tech jobs, all that. We spread those jobs to rural areas which vitally need them. And I've seen this in US. In fact, our data center in the US is in a place called Quincy in Washington State, which is really a deeply rural area. Similar things should be attempted in India as well, where we should promote building up of these data centers in rural areas, backed up by solar capacity, so that there's a lot more resilience in how we power our data centers. That's one suggestion I have. And third, of course, government procurement policies should mandate that the data be completely hosted in India, and should make that mandatory across the ecosystem. That would also be very helpful for building up the data center capacity, and increasingly maybe a 3 or 5 year plan to make sure that all of Indian citizens' data is kept in Indian shores, so that under Indian sovereignty. It's a very important data sovereignty principle, and that's the only way that our citizens' data is subject to Indian law, not to some other law. That's something that's important. Many countries are adopting this. We must adopt it. We must make sure that whoever plays in India has to play by these rules. That's another suggestion I have. That would also have an effect of promoting data center capacity in India. And you mentioned already about the capital equipment, the fact that we don't make all this in India, and that once we have the data center capacity being built up, we need to worry about how we populate those. Where does the network gear, the servers, all the and the power equipment, all that come in? And we must adopt a policy of indigenizing all this over a 5-year, 10-year period. For example, one idea would be a graduated system of tariffs, where tariffs go up every year by 4 or 5%, so that in 5 years it could be 50%. So players should be forced to take that into account in their planning. Like in 3 years, 5 years, if we don't have the plan to indigenize the equipment, our tariffs should go up. Competition might catch up. So those types of, that also gives a kind of a certainty to the players investing in this area. It's better to make it in India. So that is another suggestion I have. Of course, these multiple ministries go into commerce and finance, all of that. But we need a holistic plan, so that, because this is a very critical sector for our technology as well as our national security. And the data center equipment is often very sophisticated servers, network gear, DDoS equipment. A lot of this is involved in security as well, cyber security. And so these are some of the ideas I have, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'll be happy to respond to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sridhar Vembu. You have made some very pertinent points regarding the accelerated write-off for depreciation of the data center investments, and setting up data centers in rural areas that can really be a huge growth area for India. And also the government procurement policy for data center services and mandating data sovereignty and hosting of data in India. Already that thought process is going on within the government departments, and the proposed policy that we have brought out, that also mentions these aspects. So thank you so much for your suggestions. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Rahul Sharma from AWS. As we all are knowing, AWS is a major cloud infra and IT infra provider in India and across the world. And it has played a very significant role in expanding the data center capacity in India over the last a few years. So we would like to hear his suggestions on how the cloud adoption can be encouraged or supported in public and private sector, and what the expansion plans are for AWS in India, and what we should be doing to make India the preferred global destination for data center and cloud services. So over to you, Mr. Rahul Sharma.
Namaskar. Thank you, Kumar Saab, and very warm welcome to the privileged panel, Neeta Verma ma'am, and everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the same panel always with you. I think it's a privilege to be a part of this expansion and this opportunity in India, where we can truly be a part of something larger and helping lives improve. And I would like to just start by acknowledging and welcoming the reform agenda that has been set in the budget by the finance minister, by providing the context of a light touch approach. Also, focusing on flexibility and innovation to be the base of economic growth. When you look at the resiliency of the Indian economy and the projected growth numbers, I think technology is going to play a really important part. And I think that will be the growth engine that will put the requirements for compute capacity within India at a phenomenal level, and not just for India, but for the world. When you look at sustainable development around the Gati Shakti and the initiatives that are being called out, whether it's roads, railways, airports, transport, infrastructure, I think cloud will play a very, very important part. And it's been heartening to know that AWS has been working very closely with customers in India to be able to make it possible. As you said, Kumar Saab, we announced our first data center region in Mumbai in 2017, and just last year the government of Telangana also announced from their side additional investment of 28,000 crores from AWS in the data center region in Telangana that's coming up. So I just wanted to take this time a little bit to talk in a different context. I think all the panelists have talked about the fact that the work that is needed in terms of opening up of the the infra status and the networking. I want to put a slightly different spin to making India the global data center hub, and I think it's the innovation that's really driving and the IT minister's vision of promoting MSMEs and small and medium businesses and 500 SaaS unicorns from India. I think the opportunity is really coming together very phenomenally. And this is where I firmly believe that India can become the beacon of technology for social good, not just for India, but for the world. When you look at what's happened over the last 18 months with platforms such as Arogya Setu and CoWIN, that have become the digital jewels of India. And it's shown how India has the capability to create, along with Digital India, truly remarkable and scaling platforms on the cloud. I think that's where India can stand up to be the beacon of technology for social good in the world. That will then create the base needed to also make it the global data center hub as well, as we build on that ecosystem with the SaaS providers, with small and medium businesses. When you think about the work that's happening in agriculture and the way that India is taking a leap in agriculture using technology, all of these players, the MSMEs and the players can actually have an opportunity to create global platforms from India, and that's what will create the kind of capacity that we need, can really use for global deployment. When you think about the work that's happening in healthcare, as an example, and India is promoting CoWIN as a global digital diplomacy platform that is being now offered across the world. I think those are the key areas where we can truly take a generation leap with technology from India and create the providers that can really take that across to the globe. And that in turn will drive a lot of the data center capacity usage in India, and will create the platform for really making India as the world's largest provider of technology for social good, and not just data center infrastructure. I think overall, when we look at, I completely agree also with the point made on procurement, I think it's very important to follow and create the right mechanisms for these MSMEs, these SaaS providers from India to be able to work with the government. Technology procurement is not easy, especially new technology procurement around IoT, machine learning, artificial intelligence is not easy to procure. And I think that's where the government can play a critical role. So, in the government e-marketplace, how do we create the right mechanisms to procure new technology is going to be really important for promoting all of the usage of the data center capacity that is being proposed to be built up. So again, I'd like to really welcome the reform agenda, and we are excited to be a significant part of this, what India will stand for the world when it comes to technology for social good. So thank you so much for inviting me on the panel, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much. I think you made some very pertinent, especially the focus that you mentioned that we all should have on technology from India for the world. And I think the digital program that we are now implementing for the last 7 to 8 years, the focus is actually that to ensure that India can become the global hub for not only the IT services that we all already are, but in various other domains of technology as well. And once this entire capability gets projected to the level that we desire, I'm sure that will give a great boost to also creating and building the IT infra required for achieving that vision. So thank you so much. Also, your mention about the unicorns. Even the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned about the startup ecosystem in India in his address in the morning. And he mentioned as to how India is becoming the global hub for startups. And there is need to support the emergence of startups even more from the government side and from other stakeholders. So thank you so much for your suggestions. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Suresh Rathore from Control-less Data Centers. He is the founder and CEO of Control-less Data Center. I think this is one company which is focused on building data centers in India in a very, very big way. And you also have plans to add a lot of new capacity in the time to come. With regard to the suggestions on making India a global hub for data centers, perhaps you can also mention about how we can achieve a balance between the trend on setting up edge data centers and the hyperscale data centers. So in terms of policy support that MeitY or the government should be doing, we can have some specific focus on these two trends that we are witnessing now. So over to you, Mr. Suresh Rathore.
Thank you, Kumar Sahab, and namaste to all the audience. Just a small correction. I am President Co-location Business, and our founder chairman is Mr. Sridhar Reddy. Just a small correction. To begin with, Dr. Kumar had started his opening remark by saying we are at 499 megawatt, and if nobody does anything, it will reach 1000 megawatt. And government wants to adopt policies which will take it to 2500 megawatts. Now that's really heartening. Government is listening to the infrastructure, a large infrastructure which is getting created in this country. And why India will become a hub of global data centers are also very, very easy. And I will just like to take you through some of the pointers, which will take India and what are the market size. It's a huge market size with a huge amount of excitement from many players, be it domestic players, captive, be it infrastructure players, very, very large conglomerates wants to start these businesses, and obviously the foreign players, because the need and demand is very high. Also, as Dr. Kumar said, we are still underpenetrated compared to large countries like US, Germany, and the way our population is, we are still underpenetrated and a huge demand. Now, I can probably share a small PPT as well, and I will take through this PPT really fast so that hope all of you can see the PPT. Now, if you see, global market is expected to reach 200 billion, APAC 30%. and the way most of the APAC regions like Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia are reaching saturation. Singapore has no power available. Hong Kong is having geopolitical issues. India is poised at a very, very sweet spot where we are politically balanced amongst various powers with government data localization policies, data protection laws, which will be enforced very soon. There will be a lot of companies who will be definitely need to come to India. The business itself in India in a global market is more than 200 billion, which will happen in next by 2020. If you see another aspect, huge internet users use social media. Now these are all common things, why India will propel into a global data center hub. But the most important thing is government policies, our manpower, skilled manpower, though we have said that we lack skilled manpower, and that's true with any industry which starts growing. Now, same we witnessed in telecom industry in 2002, from 94 to 2002 to 2005, we saw a huge amount of skilled manpower deficit in telecom, but later on the industry caught up and we had skilled manpower in telecom. I think similar things industry is offering now. Lot of, like for example, our own companies, we are hiring lot of smart engineers right from college, train them, maneuver them, and I'm pretty sure government and all industry participants will ensure that another 2-3 years skill will not be deficient, and we will be able to export this skill the way we have exported the IT skills across the globe. The data center infra skills also will be passed on to the global world. Now, if you see the screen, 11.4 billion has been planned and committed for the development of DC. Now, these are all as coming from the private sector alone, who is very, very excited about the industry. India is also witnessing major data center investment. Now, if you see, actually, if you just monitor last 2 years, every year there are new data centers projects getting launched. Every year we are witnessing more than 10, 12 large scale, hundreds of megawatt projects are getting launched. Mumbai obviously being a hub of this data center due to submarine cable, skilled manpower, early mover advantages, has additional investment coming in. But other states are also, like how Rahul said, Amazon decided to make Telangana as one of their AGs last year. And obviously now Telangana is seeing a lot of growth. However, I see most of the states are competing with each other now, and hence the data center growth will happen in most part of the country. I believe West Bengal is taking lead. Noida, Uttar Pradesh is taking lead. Tamil Nadu was always a hotbed for data center. They're taking a lot of leads. But I also like Mr. Sridhar Vembu's suggestion that can the data center be closer to solar power plants or vice versa, like the land is cheaper, a lot of skill availability, and only challenge probably in rural areas could be the fiber availability, multi-route fiber availability, which I think government and industry can work together to ensure that if the fiber can be made available in rural India, it will create a huge amount of different ecosystem. Now, responding to Dr. Rajender's point that will edge data center be a new growth factor? Yes, definitely. If we don't have a telecom expert, but last 4 years, ever since the data prices have dipped in India, a huge amount of data flow has come in from otherwise undeveloped states, so-called undeveloped states those days, UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, entire Northeast. We'll see a huge data growth happening and coming from those centers. And obviously, as an industry, we would like to have data center closer to users so that we don't use those national high bandwidth and high capacity. It becomes expensive to use those national pipes, fiber optic cable unnecessarily if the data can be processed locally. With smart city coming in, with local governance taking a lot of steps in digitizing their records, etc. Edge data centers in India will be one of the very, very key focus in next 2 to 3 years time. We ourselves have made a plan to start around 50 edge data centers in this year, going to around 1,000 data center in next 5 years, Dr. Kumar. So So that's one on the edge side. Another is a hyperscale data center. Gone are the days where India were producing 10 to 15 megawatt of data center. Now, any project launched by any of the provider in this field is not less than 100 megawatt. They will start with 10 megawatt, but the land acquisition, the plan, the schematic, the design, everything is made for a hyperscale, and that's bring a lot of economy of scale in a concentrated area. The only challenge for the government is to be able to provide power sufficient, which is wherein government will have to work with the local utility companies to ensure that their substations are upgraded continuously basis the need of the industry, because these are like 10 acres and you have 100 megawatts. Now those have never witnessed in India. India is seeing a lot of what do you call large plants with concentrated power. Data center is a different industry, and hence I think government of India can work with the local utility companies to make this power available whenever industry demands and needs. I think that's the key of Indian growth of data center. In the end, we definitely have a cost advantage. Fast growing online market, robust international connectivity we already have, more fiber optics cable are getting planned in next 3 to 4 years. That's what our telecom partner says. Rapid growth in e-commerce, digital transaction, 5G will enable the data center further in India. And though panelists said lack of skilled manpower, but I believe skilled manpower will become our key resource, wherein we will be able to export in another 2-3 years time to the world. I think that those are the thoughts from my end. Any questions from the audience as well as panelists, I'll be happy to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Rathore. I think some very, and it's nice to good to know that India is attracting good investments in DC capacity, both in hyperscale level and also in the edge data centers. And as you mentioned, the PDP bill and other drivers for demand from the states like Bihar, Jharkhand, UP, etc. That's going to drive the growth of data centers and help in making India a global hub for data centers in the world. So thank you so much for your suggestions and comments. So I would now invite any questions from the audience. And I think I see a couple of raised hands. So I would first invite Mr. Sumit Mukhija to pose his question. Kindly pose question in a very short format because we don't have that much time. And also kindly mention the name of the panelist whom we would like to respond. Thank you, Mr. Mukhija.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendra Kumarji and rest of the panelists for sharing your thoughts and setting up this forum. My question is to, and suggestion is to you only, sir, Dr. Rajendra. It is, in the interest of time, I'll straight get to the point that operations is the DNA of any data center, and 100% uptime is the new normal. So it is not the size of the data centers in megawatts, but the quality of the customers and the services being offered from that facility that count more. So for example, a data center supporting a service like Passport or an edge location with just 1-2 megawatts may be more extremely important in terms of uptime as well as importance. So India currently has 500 megawatts, like you mentioned. Almost half of it, sir, has come in the last 3 years. It takes years to establish an ecosystem around data centers and bring customers in. So ability to keep the lights up and running and ensure the existing facilities of 500 megawatts remain cost competitive always, and the global customers who have chosen those facilities remain invested is very paramount for all of us and for the country. We therefore seek MATI's intervention in ensuring that there is a level playing field for existing data center players and actual data center operators. I mean, irrespective of who creates new facilities, someone has to operate it. So the operators as well as the existing players, and that any benefit or enablement measures that are proposed for new data centers and campuses and parks, etc., be applied to the existing facilities to ensure a level playing field, sir. That's my submission.
Yeah, thank you so much for raising this point. Our policy deals with these issues comprehensively, and we also have a scheme that we are proposing to bring to really provide support to the data center operators and the data center service providers. So that will take into account the points you mentioned, and we would certainly like to ensure that all the providers are on the same level. But in terms of the support to investments, I think since the goal is to make India a global hub for data centers, so the investment that are going to come as a result of the new schemes of the government, for example, the budget announcement on making data center and infrastructure and providing it with that status. So that is to be given to the new investments, but we will definitely take this point into consideration. So thank you so much for your comments and suggestion. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Jay Kumar of National. Kindly pose your question quickly, and then also mention the name of the panelist to whom you would like to address the question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My question is again to you. So when the discussion on data center policy started in 2020, it was called as draft data center policy. Now we have been using the term national data center and cloud policy. So wanted to understand why, what is the fundamental reason for the name change? What is the additional policy consideration that the government is thinking through and things of that sort? If you can throw some light on it, I think it will be useful for all of us.
Yes, so yeah, you're right. So this policy earlier last year we had named it as data center policy. Now we have also included the cloud part in that. So the idea is that in the cloud stack, the indigenous startups and other firms which can build the domestic capacity in cloud software and also the cloud stack to be provided. So they would be given incentives and support. So that is there in our draft policy. Can kindly go through the details. The scheme that we propose also mentions about this new support to the cloud stack developers and cloud services developers. So that's the additional element. Thank you. So I think now I would like to request, I can see another raised hand from Mr. Vinod Javur. So kindly pose your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. And again, Dr. Rajendra and Dr. Nidhi, very valuable inputs. Appreciate that. Few comments and one quick questions on the taking interest of time. Comment is to reiterate what Sumit has told. In a hurry to digitize, let's not stumble, because the gains which were done in the COVID can easily get deteriorated with the bad operating data centers. So we may lose what we have done because the growth we see fundamentally see from the bottom of the pyramid. And a badly run data center or battery where we lose the confidence of our customers will pull us back drastically. So while there is a need to grow, totally agree on that, we need to be very careful whom we want to grow in these areas. That is something we strongly believe. We believe that something which the government will also ensure something equal to a level playing field. We've got long interest to not only build as well as operate data center, not as short-term players here on that. So sometimes the people will come in because of capital incentives or all such kind of incentives, but data center is a long-term player. And a loss of data will lead to loss of reputation, and we will lose tremendous gains which we have gained in the last few years. That's one point I've done. Second, one suggestion, Dr. Rajendra, is skill set. While it is done there, also told that we are going to improve on the skill set. There is a plan to do. I think you must look at incentivizing people who are already investing in training. Adani, for example, has put up a big institute for digital management institute training itself. There must be some government support to push such kind of individuals for putting money on the ground to train the fresh engineers to be equally good in the market. There is a serious shortfall. We are in this from last 2-3 years, and we are seeing the shortfall is going to impact the quality. I think it's now we have to look at quantity, but equal effort has to be into how we are going to build the quality of the resources. This is a high-tech technology industry. It requires quality engineers, trained engineers, not volume-based engineers, because that's where the differentiator is going to come. So one question, one observation and one request, sir. Look at how you can incentivize organizations which are putting money on the ground to build the training institutes and infrastructure. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. Any panelists would like to respond to the observations made? Especially with regard to skilling and training requirement that you mentioned. Please.
Dr. Kumar, absolutely point raised by Mr. Javur as well as Mr. Shumit themselves. Both of them are veteran in this industry, and operation of a data center obviously has to be given because these are all long-term gains, can be destroyed in a few hours in case if these data centers are down, because they are hosting globally very reputed clients, not only in India but abroad as well. So I think those are given, and each and every organization will have to define their operating policies and make it public as well if it is possible. In fact, I was happy to note in your presentation, Dr. Kumar, wherein government wants to take initiative to reduce the PUE from 1.6, 1.7 to 1. Now that's going to be real challenge in our country, which is not too environmental friendly and with cities very polluted. How would you be able to achieve that? Obviously, we could have more discussions whenever government invites us, because that's going to be very key in making India a global hub for data centers. One is very audacious target.
Yeah, thank you. I think in the entire time I can take just one more question since we started a few minutes late, so I can go till 1:05 or so. So next we have Mr. Sunil Gupta. So kindly pose your question quickly.
Hello, Dr. Rajendra Kumar and everybody. Thanks, sir. First of all, I would like to compliment METI. Within last 3 or 4 days, we can see second major intervention by METI to involve industry and have their views informing the overall policy. This is really encouraging. Sir, I would directly come to my question, sir. Sir, if we are talking about 2000 megawatt of incremental data center capacities, we all will acknowledge this capacity cannot come into the major cities. It cannot be inside a Mumbai or inside a Delhi or inside a Chennai. Most of this capacity will have to come in the form of a large data center parks with ecosystem of power generation as well. And maybe because the data centers also need to be closer to the end user clusters, my thinking is majority of this capacity may have to come at the distant peripheries of major cities. So you benefit from the city landscape and the city ecosystem, but you also are able to build it at a large scale. The key issue, sir, in this case is extending wholesale, redundant, resilient fiber capacity to these locations. You touched upon, the common use of facilities, sharing of infrastructure. But the point is, sir, to these locations where you have to develop infrastructure from grounds up, ready-made underlying ducts may not be available. It might be very costly to get ROWs also to do the trenching and commissioning of fiber capacities. And what we have seen, sir, in our real-time experience, unless we show a big upfront business case to telecom operators, they may not have any incentive to invest into taking their bulk fiber to this data center capacity. Now, this will be a challenge whenever we talk about data centers, whether to a periphery of a large city or whether we talk about rural areas like Mr. Sridhar talked about. Now, sir, my question and request is, sir, there has to be a mechanism which can be a mandatory obligation or a subsidy or incentivization or both to the telecom operators that they do build a strong and redundant fiber connectivity to every new data center which comes up at the peripheries of cities or in the remote areas. This has to be some mechanism there, mandatory or incentivization, as I said, sir. Second, sir, most of the time when hyperscalers and big time customers are coming in, the retail bandwidth in today's scenario, sir, 100 gig also is taken as a retail connectivity. They need petabytes of bandwidth for which access to dark fiber is required so that you can lit as much capacity as required. Today, end users, whether it's cloud operators, whether it's data center operators who want to serve their customers, cannot have access to dark fiber today. So not only telecom operators need to bring their fiber and capacity to the data center, there has to be access to the data center operators and the end customer access to fiber so that they can create their own managed networks. So this is for telecom operators, sir. Second is, sir, as the point as industry we have raised is, sir, data center operators themselves who are hosting these hyperscalers should be allowed to lay their own fiber, build their own managed network, and connect to other data centers, not for retail connectivity, but to connect to other data centers, to connect to landing stations, and some other key buildings like maybe stock exchanges and all. And last point, sir, connected to that only, sir, carrier neutrality should be truly enforced, and all data center operators should be mandated to allow all the telecom operators, including data center operators who may want to lay their own fiber, to bring their fiber into the data center. Because ultimately the ecosystem would be customers would like to host into multiple data centers, right, into remotest areas. And unless all these data centers are truly connected to multiple means through redundant bulk fiber, this ecosystem will not come into picture in the scale in which we are all envisaging, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I think you made some very relevant points with regard to taking data centers to the periphery of major cities or even to rural areas. And also a point about dark fiber, we have received as a recommendation suggestion from many quarters. And also the carrier neutrality. So all the 3 points are valid. We are working with our colleagues in DOT to really address these issues. And we hope that we can get a resolution to the benefit of growth of the entire sector in the come. So thank you so much. I think before we close the session, perhaps each of the panelists can provide any last minute thoughts or any suggestions in just about 30 seconds. So starting with Dr. Neeta Verma.
Thank you. I think India's digital profile is changing rapidly, and we'll have a huge demand within the country. And the kind of policy and the kind of interventions needed, we are well poised to become the global data hub and cloud hub. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Sridhar Vembu.
Yes, we ourselves are actually committed to investing in heavily in data center capacity, and we are actually working with controllers as well. We are a happy customer of theirs. We are expanding rapidly, and I see a tenfold growth in the next 5-6 years in capacity. I think we could become number one in the world. Even our own needs, our own number of internet users, all that. So I'm very optimistic, and the next challenge is to make sure that we use the independent equipment. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rahul Sharma.
Apologies, I was not able to. Yeah, I was not able to unmute. No, thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of the panel. I think cloud will truly be the democratizer to technology availability to small and medium businesses, and to the smallest, smallest part of innovation in India. We must be able to use cloud to drive inclusivity when it comes to availability of technology, and make sure that the innovation can happen in the villages and the grassroots of India. So really excited to be a part of this tremendous journey that India is going through, and privileged to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh Rathore.
It's really interesting for MIT and ministers and Prime Minister themselves to address this forum, which itself says that government is very serious about it. One more important thing, we would like this forum to probably address. Building large-scale infrastructure in India takes a lot of more time, because of various issues on the ground. From a government side, centrally, it looks very neat and clean. But when you actually execute the project of a large size, 50 megawatt, will take at least two years. Can we expedite those permissions, power availabilities, land issue resolution, and all other things on a faster track? Maybe from state central coordination, that will really help industry to save a lot of money, as well as make this data center capacity available to client when they need. I think that's where we need some coordination, and if that can be arranged, it will be really helpful, sir.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. We had a brilliant discussion, and we have noted all the suggestions and inputs given by all the panelists, also from the audience. And we would definitely like to work with all the ecosystem partners, our stakeholders from industry, from academia, from our R&D institutions, and from our colleagues in the other ministries here with all the state governments, to really achieve the vision of making India the global hub for data centers and cloud services. So thank you so much for providing your inputs, and we would work with all of you in future to really realize this vision for our country. Thank you so much. At this point, we will close the panel now. Thank you so much.